All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Huge show ahead for you guys. So in the third hour, we have two different things that you got to stay here for. Number one is Peter Dow is going to join us. He was one of the biggest, well, I think it's fair to call him an attack dog for Hillary Clinton. And who was he attacking? Bernie Sanders. He says that he is past it. We're going to find out if that's really the case a little bit later in the program when he joins us. We're gonna do an extended interview with him because there is a lot to talk about. So do not miss that. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell Randy Gonzalez. It's right here on TYT.com. And then after that, we're doing a review of Knock Down the House. So that's the movie about AOC and three other Just Democrats who ran for office, and they actually won the award at Sundance for best film. And Ida Rodriguez and Brooke Thomas and I are going to review it. That's actually post game. We're making available to everyone so that you guys can all check out our review. We'll have a little extra as always for the members. So tyt.com/join to become a member. We rely on you guys to be able to do this show. And then of course we got a lot of programming in the first 2 hours as well. And folks are going to join me in just a little bit to make that happen, including somebody at the Trump administration might be getting impeached. Is it Trump? Probably not. Okay, but Nancy Pelosi, all of a sudden, here comes master legislator. Interesting, really. Okay, and how about the polling in the presidential race? Is it accurate? All that amazing stuff coming up. But I got one quick story for you guys. So recently I told you guys that WOLF-PAC was in Hawaii. Of course, a lot of you know WOLF-PACs get money out of politics. We need an amendment. We go big on everything if you're in the progressive community, right? Green New Deal, Medicare for all. I myself am progressive, but actually the one thing that progressives, conservatives, libertarians, independents, almost all of us agree on, over 90% of Americans get money out of politics. We got to fix the system. In fact, a lot of Republicans, voters, not the politicians, but the voters agree more often than not, even more so than Democratic voters, that yeah, the politicians are corrupt. At the national level, there is nothing but checks that they pay attention to. Nobody ever changed their mind. There's no debate. There's no honorable gentlemen who are like, which way should I go? Now, oftentimes I tell you on the show that at the state level it's totally different. And there are wonderful legislators, and you've heard me call out a lot of their names in a lot of different states. In states that the WOLF-PAC resolution to get that constitutional amendment to fix our system have passed, but also in ones that haven't passed. But there's wonderful fighters for our cause, and in a lot of ways I think they're the founding fathers and mothers, including the state of Hawaii, where we passed in the Senate for the second year in a row. And I did a video about that and told you about all the wonderful, heroic, smart, progressive, and non-progressive as well, senators that voted for that. So, unfortunately, as usual, it has been blocked in the House in Hawaii. They always find a way to block it in one house or another, and it's usually one person in a critical place. The whole rest of the House is ready to vote. They almost certainly would have passed it. In fact, in the Judiciary Committee, they almost certainly would have passed it because the majority of the Judiciary Committee actually has sponsored the resolution. But in Hawaii, in every state, there's someone else that is in charge of whether you could even have a vote, whether you could even have a hearing. For whatever reason, in Hawaii, it is the vice chairs of the committees. And if you don't get it out of the committee, you can't get a vote on it. So we've got everything lined up, but one person blocked it. Now, that actually happened a couple of weeks ago, and I've been hesitating in telling you about it. That's curious, why? Well, Democrats are a little different than Republicans. If a Republican votes against you and you target him, the Democrats find that to be not just normal and good, but pretty much awesome. Like, yeah, of course, go get the Republican. But even the other Republicans usually understand. They're like, well, he voted against you, what are you gonna do? Or he didn't let you have a hearing, what are you gonna do? I get it, I mean, and then they'll bring in a lot of money and then you guys will have a political fight, right? But if you say to anyone, hey, this Democratic group or this Democratic politician is the one blocking progress and getting money out of politics, other Democrats get so hurt by that. They're like, don't, what are you doing? Don't do it, don't do it. But wait, we've been in Hawaii for so many years now. For 4 years, we've been stuck in that Judiciary Committee. So if I tell you who it is that's blocking it, I guarantee you a lot of people in Hawaii, including a lot of the Democratic Party, is gonna go, oh my God, I can't believe you would tell people what's actually happening in the state of Hawaii. People are gonna get upset at this legislator. But if I don't tell you who it is, well, we're never gonna move. She's been blocking it for 4 straight years. So what am I gonna do? We're damned if we do, damned if we don't. And it's passed in the Senate 2 years in a row. And it will pass in that committee and it will pass in the House. There's only one person blocking it. But in Hawaii, they're like, no, especially in the Democratic Party. Hey, we have our traditions and our rules, and the vice chair decides. And for her, it appears to be personal. She says, well, I don't like WOLF-PAC. Okay, well, can we get put aside the public hearing. Can we talk to you? Can we have a conversation where we come to your office and we explain our case? No, I already heard from the national Washington groups backed by Nancy Pelosi. I don't want to hear anything. I don't want to hear it. She says, well, look, I let a hearing happen 3 years ago. You know what the hearing was? She said, okay, the WOLF-PAC's resolution is to call for a convention. That's why we're going to the states. There's 2 ways to get an amendment. One is through Congress, which is nearly impossible right now. I challenge anybody working on this. Do you really think 2/3 of Congress is gonna say, oh yeah, let's get the money out of politics? The way we all won our elections, almost all now, okay? No, forget it. Let's just, instead, let's go and pass an amendment. And by the way, if that's the case, why don't they do it? Are you kidding me? I would love it. The only reason we're pursuing a convention path is because it's the only chance of success to actually get money out of politics and actually fix our broken campaign finance system. We have private financing of elections. The actual progressive and Democratic voters can't stand it because the Koch brothers and the Mercers and Adelson buy all these elections, and so does ExxonMobil and the drug companies. A progressive saying, no, we shouldn't get money out of politics. Unbelievable. But actually a lot of Republican voters hate it too. Almost all the Republican voters hate it. Why? In their mind, they're like, oh my God, Soros is buying all the elections, Bloomberg, etc. Right? Well, let's get all of it out. Get all of the private financing out. But no, in Hawaii, she will not let it pass. So 3 years ago, we go to a committee hearing and she says, okay, I'm gonna take I did a hearing and I'm taking the convention part of the bill out. The whole point of the bill is a convention. So then that's nothing. That's passing air. It's passing nothing at all. Oh, we're gonna ask Congress to act. Dozens of states have asked Congress to act. Can I ask you something? How's that going? Okay, but that is not our resolution. Our resolution is for a convention call. So I'm gonna say her name and I'm gonna ask you, look, it's not just about Hawaii. We got elections all across the country, in Maryland, Connecticut, etc. Sometimes we run against Republicans, sometimes we run against Democrats, because it is really a nonpartisan group. Over 90% of Americans, you get it. By the way, if you want to help, this makes all the difference, because pretty please ain't working. wolf-pac.com/elections. wolf-pac.com/elections. Okay, that's how we get things done. Because we've asked nicely 1,000 times. And by the way, should we continue to ask nicely? Of course. We're animated about the issue, but are we polite? Yes, go ask the legislators in all these states. And do we do it in a political way? Yes, of course we do. But if you disagree with someone on the Democratic side, they say, oh, I can't believe how uncivil you are. You should just take your loss and know that I'm never going to allow for a vote and just be done with it and surrender. No, sorry, we don't surrender. So we will continue to fight, but always just politically and always in a civil fashion. Doesn't mean we can't be energetic and passionate. We are, because then they say, well, why don't you have sophisticated lobbyists? All we got is volunteers. We got 45,000 volunteers, 4 staffers making a ridiculously low salary. They're fighting all throughout the different places. They're going to Washington, Hawaii, New Hampshire, Nevada, Nebraska, and the list goes on. So anyway, okay, here it is. It's Representative Joy San Benaventura. She is she's in the 4th district in Hawaii. She's a state representative there. My guess is that on a great number of issues, we would agree. On a great number of issues, but not on this issue. And this issue is the most important issue. So look, in the context of the Young Turks, I care about all the issues. In the context of other groups that I'm involved with, I care about progressive issues. In the context of WOLF-PAC, I only care about one issue. If we don't fix these elections and we don't fix how we run this government, both at the state level and at the national level, well, all the rest of the conversations are irrelevant. So if you're a Republican and you support ending the private financing of elections, WOLF-PAC will support you. I might not support you, but WOLF-PAC will support you. If you're a Republican who fights against it, we're gonna fight against you. If you're a Democrat who supports getting money out of politics, WOLF-PAC's gonna love you. If you're, and Republican as well. If you're a Democrat who's opposed to it and you say, well, Nancy Pelosi told me, Common Cause told me, I didn't bother listening to you guys. I didn't bother looking at the facts. I didn't bother to look that the Justice Department agrees that a convention cannot run away. So does the American Bar Association, so does Congressional Research Service, that all the fear-mongering and conspiracy theories that those groups are putting out are false. They're actually originally by a right-wing group that started a crazy, John Birch Society, crazy right-wing group, started conspiracy theories about runaway elections. No lawyers actually believe that. And nonetheless, they misquote people like Professor Lawrence Tribe from Harvard Law School, and the list goes on and on. But those are facts, those are facts. In fact, there's already 38 calls for a convention in Congress counted already. And you go, well, if we could have a runaway convention and on any issue, you only need 34 states, we'd already have one. They're like, I don't care about your facts. So I don't know what else to do about someone like Representative Bonaventura. So 4 years, and it'll be 5, it'll be 6, it'll be 7. So whatever you do, look, don't get upset at her. It's not about that. And so it's about making a difference. So whether it's her or anywhere else in the country, we have got to fund the elections that WOLF-PAC runs. Otherwise, we're playing patty cakes, and they're not gonna listen. They're just gonna go, yes, but my lobbyist friends say otherwise, and I don't care about the facts, and I am never going to even allow a vote. Not allow a vote. So anyone who stands in that way politically gotta go. That's what elections are for. That's what elections are for. And if you're a Democrat and you're upset by that, do you believe in democracy at all? You say, oh, no. I should be immune from elections. You are impolite for suggesting that I should lose, for making sure that you lose, and that you never, ever win on your issue, the most important issue in the world. And by the way, if you don't believe in getting money out of politics, and you don't believe in fighting for that in every way possible, I'll guarantee you're not a progressive. You might think you're a progressive on other issues. Oh, well, I believe in clean streets and clean air, but I don't want big money out of politics. No way. Then you're not a progressive. Okay, it doesn't matter. I happen to be a progressive, but this is a nonpartisan group. I've said it 1,000 times. wolf-pac.com/elections. Okay, that makes all the difference. You give now, you do anything you can, man. You volunteer, you join, wolf-pac.com/join. Get in the fight. It's not just about Hawaii at all. It's about all of these different states. We ran elections in Connecticut, Maryland, and other places, and it has made a difference. Let's go make a difference together. Otherwise, these politicians are never gonna listen to us. Let's actually use the political process. Let's use democracy and make a difference. Because if they're not ever gonna give us a hearing, then we gotta get new representatives who actually will listen to their constituents. Speaking of which, by the way, you know how many people emailed her? Hundreds of her own constituents emailed her, don't care. They even made a video, don't care. You wanna see the video? Here's the video.
My name is Carrie Porter, and I live on the island of Oahu in District 48. And the reason I'm making this video for you is to urge you to call for a public hearing on SCR 131.
My name is Mishi McConnell, and I live on Maui.
My name is Mishka Salva. I am a constituent in House District 21.
My name is Brian Doran, and I'm a constituent of yours living in Pahoa.
My name is Nao. I live in Honolulu.
Big money in politics is why we cannot take care of the environment. It's why we cannot take care of healthcare for the people.
This is a pressing issue. We don't have time to postpone it year to year, and the country doesn't have time to wait for Congress.
Please schedule a hearing for SCR 131. Please. Ben Gathright from Manoa Valley, District 23.
Now, she's already seen this, and she doesn't care. And she says there'll never be a vote. Well, there is a vote, and there'll be a vote on her seat. All right, we'll see you over there. That's what elections are for. That's what a democracy is for. All right, we're gonna take a quick break here. We'll come right back. We hope you're enjoying this free clip from the Young Turks. If you want to get the whole show and more exclusive content while supporting independent media, become a member at tyt.com/join today. In the meantime, enjoy this free segment. All right, back on the Young Turks, Cenk Uygur, John Iadarola, Maytha Alhassen is here. All right, hey Maytha, how you doing?
I'm good. It's been a while since we sat right next to each other.
Yeah, you've been on the show when I was off, etc. But it's good to be together. We got a lot of stories coming up for you guys. Let me read a couple of quick comments. I'm gonna let John rip. Okay, Lieutenant McG writes in the member section. Proud to be a member of WOLF-PAC. Frustrating story, but glad to know you're still fighting the good fight, Cenk. Going to donate some more now. Well, thank you. It's deeply appreciated. wolf-pac.com/join or /elections. The elections one goes to strictly fighting on electoral front, and so people who vote against WOLF-PAC, we go to take them out politically, obviously. Because I say that even though it's so obvious, partly because there's like a monstrous right wing, and to them it's not obvious, and partly because there's a wing of the Democratic Party who likes to pretend like, oh yeah, if you dare to fight back with ideas, I'm gonna say that you're disrespectful or something. And then like implies ridiculous things. Anyway, Society Troll says, proud to be a WOLF-PAC volunteer. Well, I love that too. Any way you can do it. If you can volunteer, great. If you can donate, great. Either way, love it, okay? It makes all the difference. In fact, we're totally volunteer powered. So anyway, Denise says, you have no idea how many times I wish I could retire so I could donate my time to a worthy cause instead of having to spend 50 to 80 hours a week trying to survive. At least my job allows me to listen while I type. Look, Denise and everyone else, I just want to say, it doesn't matter how you help, even listening, so that you are armed with information and knowledge, so that when you talk to family members and friends, that makes a difference. If you do simple things like sharing this live stream, sharing a video, tweeting it out, and like 5 seconds worth of stuff still makes a difference. So thank you, Denise, appreciate it. And you could do Just Democrats, Tom, you could do WOLF-PAC, you could do Young Turks. By the way, all of them have to work together, because without us doing the progressive message out here, nobody would ever hear of WOLF-PAC, or in the beginning, nobody would have heard of nobody, but pretty close to nobody would have heard of Just Democrats in the beginning. That's for, I think that's for sure. Anyway, Gabby Marita says, if you don't want to get big money out of politics, you don't get to claim you believe in democracy. I totally agree. All right, well, we got a lot of stories. John, you're up.
We do. Let's have a little bit of fun. Just days after announcing his candidacy, Joe Biden apparently got a big bounce in the polls. Or did he? Because the headlines all seemed pretty clear that he shot up, but when you look closer, it's not as clear as the headlines make it seem. So on Tuesday, there was a CNN poll showing Biden at 39, Sanders at 15, and Warren at 8. So look, that is not only a big lead for Biden over Bernie Sanders, it's also a gigantic jump for Biden, who had generally been in the high 20s, occasionally like 30, 31. That's a big jump. So I want to skip ahead just a little bit to show you the actual breakdown of the demographics in the CNN poll. So let's go to that. Don't expect that you're gonna be able to make much sense of this. The text is very small, and there's a lot of stuff there. But what you will notice immediately is that as you go down, that's a whole bunch of different candidates. There's a lot of NAs, and the NAs are in the categories of people between 18 to 34 and 35 to 49. Now, a lot of people notice that relatively quickly. Now that does not mean that they did not have any respondents in those age ranges. They did. It just means that there weren't enough for them to consider it to be a sort of representative sample for opinions held by those people. There's just not enough of them. And overall, it means that the results overall are gonna be a good bit biased, because what you are really polling in actuality are not people, it's the oldest age groups in America. And is it a shock that they might prefer Joe Biden over some of the other candidates? And again, it doesn't mean by itself that he did not experience some sort of bump, or that bump might not be sustainable, or they might not find in other places. But the headlines never said Joe Biden gets big bump from poll of septuagenarians. It says Joe Biden up big. Pack this thing in, it's done.
Yeah.
He announced, it's over.
Yeah, so I complained last time around in 2016 that the media was, I think it was accidental, subconscious, etc. I don't think that it was a plot. Some of you might disagree, but I really don't think so. That was favoring Hillary Clinton by doing a number of things, including, and the most prominent one is they were counting superdelegates before the superdelegates ever voted. The superdelegates vote at the end, not at the beginning. They were doing endorsements, but superdelegate endorsements change all the time. In fact, in the last big Democratic primary, the superdelegates were on Hillary Clinton's side in the beginning, and then they switched over in the middle, and then eventually voted for Obama. So counting the superdelegates in the beginning as if they had already voted, and as if it was actual voters voting instead of politicians, that's the superdelegates voting, it made a giant difference because it seemed like, oh, this thing's already over. Why is Bernie, like no votes yet, right? And people are like, why is Bernie Sanders still in the race? This thing's over, look at I saw on CNN, it's like 190 to 1. What is this crazy guy doing in the race? He's illegitimate. So that was a subtle message that was sent. And I talked about that when I was on CNN, and Brian Stelter on Reliable Source was good enough to have me on to make that point. Now, this time around, they're doing things like this. Big poll, Biden announces, got a big lead. Here we go. Now look, again, I don't think that it's conscious that they're certainly not getting together in a room and be like, all right, how do we fix the poll so we don't ask young people, okay, we just ask old people that pretend Biden's winning. I would be shocked if that were the case, totally shocked. But when you see a poll that has all those not applicables, right? And you see that it's for older people, and you run a giant headline that says Biden takes commanding lead, surges 10 points. That's problematic. And what does it do? It gives Biden a perception of having a big insurmountable lead, and then the Nate Silvers, et cetera, come in and start writing about how Bernie Sanders is sliding and Biden's got a commanding lead. I mean, I literally saw this movie before. It was just a couple of years ago when we did these things. And then when I say, again, it's like people love to be offended in Washington. They could do these things and they don't find that offensive. But if you point it out, it reminds me of the right wing. For the right wing, doing racist stuff is not a problem. But if you point out racism, they're like, oh, you're doing identity politics. And with the mainstream media, we point out bias. We're not like the right wing, we don't think you're enemy of the people, but we point out something that appears to be an unconscious bias here, and they get so offended, Oh yeah, oh you guys love Sanders. I'm not the one who did the poll, you're the one who did the poll. And when I ask you, hey, shouldn't the editors be careful about this stuff? Then they're like, oh, what are you trying to get me fired? Look, but it's my job to tell you this is not a good poll. I'm a journalist checking you. You're supposed to be checking the government, but yet we have situations like this. And I want to be clear too. I agree with John. Other polls could be totally legitimate, and maybe Biden is surging. But you got to give me a poll that doesn't do this to make your case.
Absolutely, and there is such a thing in media called framing, and framing does sometimes arise from unconscious bias. But clearly, what I interpret this polling and polling of only septuagenarians and above to mean is that they want to introduce a candidate that seems like they're a winning candidate. If somebody has more than 20 plus points above the next candidate is supposed to challenge them, then that's supposed to look like a Democratic Party that has their stuff together and can mount a challenge to Trump. But also, we didn't just see this in 2015, 2016 against Bernie in favor of Hillary Clinton and the airplay that she got, or the polling, as you explained, the breakdown around the superdelegate count. But we saw this with Trump, and we saw the coverage of Trump from June 2015 by all the cable networks to triple the amount that they gave Obama when he was running for re-election 2012. And so I think that they're over coverage, and Amy Goodman has talked about this. She started talking about this in 2016, April 2016. She thought that it was really dangerous and damaging, and she was one of the first to point out how much coverage that Trump was getting. Full rallies were being covered on cable news. So this is, I count as a kind of version of over-representing a certain candidate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and I think let's jump ahead to the two examples, just to give you an idea of how these polls were relayed to the people. So we have from I believe it's Politico, Biden extends lead by 11 points in CNN poll with post-announcement surge, and then Axios had 3 new polls show former VP extends lead over 2020 field. And again, I don't even necessarily blame them. I wish that I guess it's laziness of a form, but they're not gonna dig into the crosstabs and everything, every poll, unfortunately. I wish that they would, because it's important, but they want first of all, they're worried about missing something. So if Biden is surging, they want to make sure that they had a headline about it, but also they want to capitalize on any drama. Nobody wants like the headline to be polls roughly similar. Like you can't do that headline every 3 days or anything. So if he shoots up, it's gonna be drama. I mean, hopefully if it was like Warren at 40 points, they would also have a lot of headlines about that. But I think that they are trying to capture the drama, and I just hope that they can be a little bit more critical in the future. And we were talking about, I mean, I'm gonna bring this guy up, might anger you a little bit, but in terms of how you frame these sorts of results, I mean, this has definitely played into the past couple of days of social media activity of Nate Silver, the numbers guy. He loves to dig into the polls and all that. He's got his not to be taken too seriously presidential tiers. If we could bring that up, it's the third to last graphic. And you'll see Biden is gonna be all by himself. And then there's a little gap. I don't know what that represents. And then you see Harris going down, Sanders going down, Warren going up a little bit because in some of the polls, actually one poll she was above Sanders. And what I've noticed, I don't know if you've been following his Twitter activity, the way that he interprets literally everything in this primary in terms of how durable a lead is, what electability means, all of it, coincidentally, none of it favors Bernie Sanders. I just noticed from issue to issue to issue, always, he doesn't necessarily talk about Bernie Sanders, but it is always pitched as things are working out for the other candidates. And Bernie's got lots of name recognition, probably gonna fall after this. Like that same thing doesn't apply to Biden or anything. It's this weird inconsistency in how the things are supposed to work.
So here's a good example of it. Klobuchar versus Tulsi Gabbard, okay? So look, people assume that I'm on some side or another side. When I'm on a side, I don't hide it, okay, I'll tell you. So, but in the case of Klobuchar, tremendous hype all throughout the media. Klobuchar, she gets a town hall even though she's polling at never, I'm not sure she's ever gotten above 3%, but consistently 2%, 1%, etc. Klobuchar, right now, Klobuchar and Gabbard are both at 2%. No, where's Tulsi Gabbard? I don't see, other than this program and a couple others, I don't see Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah. She's on the list. He has her in 3B.
That's right.
Klobuchar's 2B.
And Yang has 1%.
Yeah. Why is Klobuchar in 2B at 2% and Gabbard's in 3B at 2%? Why?
He does have Gabbard going up though.
Yeah, up to 3B when she's polling at the same number as Klobuchar. The reason is a subconscious bias that Nate doesn't even realize he has, because he watches cable news all day and cable news tells him, and Washington tells you Klobuchar is a real candidate, backed up by no evidence. Has never polled well, has never done anything in terms of small donations, volunteers, any other metric that you can measure. But they have their implicit biases, and they get so offended when you point it out. If the right wing points it out and the right wing says maniacal things, they respect them. They go, oh, okay, sorry, I don't want to be liberal. I don't want to be liberal. Well, how can I help? I'll just fluff up your numbers somehow and say, I'm not saying about Nate, I'm saying overall in the establishment. If the progressives say, hey, you're being biased, they're like, oh yeah, weirdos. I bet you like Bernie Sanders. He's got no chance, right? I mean, we did a story yesterday about how the Wall Street bankers are like, we're scared to death of Elizabeth Warren. Even though Bernie Sanders is polling better, way better, they're like, oh, he's crazy. No one I know thinks he can win. And yes, that does filter down to the media. That does filter down, I don't mean from the banks. I mean that groupthink in New York and Washington. And does even filter down to guys like Nate Silver, who we want to do better. So look, last thing about the polls for me, I think, I do love analyzing it, is that there are other polls, like the poll that we pointed out, the CNN one, it's got a massive issue, as you can tell. But Biden is picking up steam. That makes sense. He just announced, and he actually did a good political strategy with pointing out Charlottesville. Trump attacked them. That's going to lift up his numbers. You can talk about that and do it in a fair way. I thought Warren's policy proposals would do well. I've been telling you for about a week on the show, if not more, that her numbers would start to go up, and they have. And that's also shown in the same polls. And she's gone up about 3 points. And now she's solidly in third place. So that's real, and they do mention that as well. And look, so I like Elizabeth Warren a lot. I like Bernie Sanders a lot. I told you if I like someone, I tell you, there it is, right? And Bernie Sanders, for a while looked like he was going to overtake Biden, and I thought that made sense, politically, let alone what I think about his policy. Now he's not in as commanding a second place as I would have thought, and I point that out. And it's two different hats. One is, who do you think is right on the policy? And the other is, what's actually happening? what's the reality on the ground? We thought Trump might win. We couldn't stand Trump, but we gave you the actual numbers and talked about likely versus not. So it is, I have to confess, it is frustrating where we say we're home of progressives, we clearly label who we are, we talk honestly about our point of view, and then we actually analyze the numbers because it's our job to give you facts. And they call us biased, then they turn around and have an actual bias where they put the numbers in a skewed perspective to favor their own candidates, and then when you point it out, they get all hurt and emotional over it. So, but that is the reality, and we're gonna keep on delivering those facts to you guys, and then our perspective, no matter what.
What was really fascinating about this Nate Silver article that was based on some of his most recent numbers was that he was stacking everything around Biden leading the pact, and he was sizing up every other candidate, and I was like, this is so stunning that we've already gotten to this point that Biden's the one to beat this early on, 1, 2, based on these kind of polling numbers, which should be suspicious to people based on who they've polled. And again, people like Nate Silver, who, up until the bell rang in November 2016, was in the Hillary camp. So, I mean, yeah, it's this kind of premature coverage, this kind of premature polling. I would say just be skeptical around it. And the other thing that, I'm sure you've talked about a lot here is that there is, with cable news networks, a lot of coverage around Biden, Buttigieg. I'm sorry, I'm probably never gonna talk to this man ever in real life, but
no, he might also struggle with your name. No, actually, he wouldn't because he probably speaks like 12 languages. And
I can beat him a little bit on that too.
Well, that's true.
I just didn't serve in the military, and I don't think I'm ever going to do that. But that's a whole nother story. Anyways, him and that obsession with him and Beto, it's fascinating because they're 3 white men from different age generations. So I think what they're trying to do is point out their sort of picks for people that wouldn't size up between each other, like the Bernie Sanders, like the Biden, and of course, clearly people who are a little bit more moderate than the rest of the folks, like the Warrens and the Sanders that scare the hell out of the banks.
I know I shouldn't have said last point.
No. Oh, sorry. I just
no, because I gotta say 2 things about what you're saying. First of all, look, I want to be fair to Nate Silver because that's what we tried to do very hard. So he was more right than the rest of the establishment on Trump. So he didn't get it right either, but he was closer to being right. And he's the only one I've seen point out that Elizabeth Warren is surging, probably based on the incredibly detailed policy proposals that she has put forward. We've been telling you that people care about policy, and people on TV, they're like, no, everybody just cares about like gloss and shine and whether you're rolling up your sleeves well, right? It's all about image and who's young and who's hip and who speaks Farsi and who speaks Norwegian, right? Do you play the piano? Oh, it's all about image, right?
Eating fried chicken with Al Sharpton.
Right, but we told you ahead of time, Elizabeth Warren's got amazing policies she unveiled. I bet she goes up in the polls. Boom, she goes up in the polls. It's not like we're Monday morning quarterbacking it. So, hey, the rest of the media, I know you're super impressed by, and those things are impressive, by the way, that Buttigieg speaks Norwegian and plays great piano, etc. But what's more impressive is policy that affects our lives, right? And that you should make equal note of that, and you most certainly have not. Alex Seitz-Wald, who I'm sure is a perfectly lovely guy, I asked him to be on the show, but he did, along with another report on NBC News, this fawning report of Buttigieg. I gotta be honest with you, it was embarrassing. If we had done something similar about Bernie Sanders, people would be like, ha, we knew it, right? But it was like, Buttigieg is so smart, so data driven, oh my God, he's so great. But you know what, it turns out he had a couple of problems, but we have a great explanation for that. Then he realized he was missing the human touch. And then he found that human touch and became a real leader. Well, now with the human touch and all the data-driven smartness, what an unbelievable leader. By the way, if you think I'm exaggerating, read the piece. I am not exaggerating. It was unreal. If I was the PR person for Buttigieg, I would have been embarrassed to write that and give it to the press. I mean, they made it seem like his significant problems with racial relations in South Bend were a wonderful thing that led him to be even a more heroic leader with big heart.
Yeah,
that is not how a lot of people in South Bend perceived it.
Yeah, and I would also say, as many of you have probably seen going around, the policy wonk with sex appeal headline of him like choking himself with his tie or whatever. First of all, if you're gonna designate a policy wonk in this current crop of candidates, it seems kind of messed up not to give it to Elizabeth Warren, especially when the person you do give it to has explicitly said that he is a new type of candidate, and that is why you can't find any details about policies on his website.
No, you cannot call Buttigieg a policy wonk when he says, I don't do policy, I do values. He is the least policy oriented. He tells you he's the least policy oriented out of all the candidates. He proudly declares, I want to talk about values, not policies. So when you do that, how could you not see the bias? How could you not see your own bias? Yeah. Well, if you're going to talk about policy, there's only two people here, and I'm not saying that because I'm a progressive. Bernie Sanders, admittedly, you have to admit, a lot of people have admitted, is the one who proposed all these policies in the first place and has been proposing them for 40 years. In fact, the mainstream media then turns around and goes, well, since you've been the leader on this, we don't need you anymore. What kind of logic is that? That's crazy. And then Warren is killing it with detailed, brilliant policy initiatives that affect so many Americans. If you're gonna talk about who's the policy wonk, you're I mean, that proves bias more than anything else. If you don't say that Sanders and Warren are clear 1 and 2, head and shoulders above everyone else. If you say, well, no, Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, they might be good candidates otherwise, but they also believe in Medicare for all, Bernie's idea, Green New Deal, in a lot of ways, originally Bernie's idea, and you go down the list. And it's almost all Bernie's ideas in the beginning, and then you could argue that Warren made them better or Warren has added to them. But you can't make the argument that the other people have got those two beat on policy. That is not an argument that you could possibly make. If you want to come on the show, I'd love to have that conversation because I don't think it's backed up by the facts.
Have you had Nate Silver on the show?
No, he won't come on. Oh. Yeah, look, I'll go talk to anybody, right? But for them, there's like, whoa, I'm gonna get challenged. I don't wanna get challenged. So let's just get real. That's what's happening right now. Okay. Because look, I'm not talking about Nate now, but a lot of the mainstream media are so smug in their certainty that they've got almost their own set of alternative facts. And so when you pierce that bubble, they get super mad at you. They still, like the guys who were wrong about the Iraq war, are paid millions upon millions of dollars on television. The people who were right about the Iraq war, shunned. So, I mean, it's been going on for decades.
Yeah, I would say that smugness is not necessarily just confined with the mainstream media. Basically, everyone talking about politics is, in my view, incredibly smug about it. In any event, on this particular topic, I do want to thank the viewer, Nicholas Snowd, who clued us into that particular, that facet of the polling, and so thank you for that. We do have to take our break, though.
Okay, all right, let's do it. All right, we'll be back. We got so many more stories for you guys, including Barr. Is he going to be impeached? And look at Nancy Pelosi, a little twist there, a little turn. All right, we'll be right back.